2.1 billion. Yes, billion with a B. That's going to be the cost to widen I-77 in Charlotte from uptown to the South Carolina state line. That's up over 100% from the $1 billion cost estimate that I saw floating around for this project in the early 2000s. This is likely due to increasing land values as Charlotte has exploded in population as of late. This was the kind of project that state officials knew long ago was necessary, but it was so big and so massive that they preferred not to think about it. At $2.1 billion, upgrading this roadway will be the single largest and most challenging infrastructure project in North Carolina state history. So why does Charlotte and the NCDOT believe this roadway needs to be widened? Why is it so costly? Exactly what does this widening plan entail and how soon can it be finished? We're about to find out. But first, I want to welcome you to the channel. I am Mile Edge Mike, formerly an engineer designing the world. I now travel it, bringing you first-person views of various cities, highways, and infrastructure, as well as commentary videos on those subjects like this one. So hit that like button and subscribe if you enjoy the content. And let's get back to Charlotte. In Charlotte, the highway network consists of two main interstates, I-77 and I-85. I-77 travels north-south, connecting the affluent Lake Norman suburbs with Uptown, where it has already been widened with the highly controversial tolled express lanes. South of Uptown, the area in question, I-77 is the most busy portion, running to the South Carolina border and across the state line into the South Carolina suburbs of Fort Mill and Rock Hill. In this area, I-77 shrinks from 8 to 6 lanes, and it is not only the busiest stretch of highway in Charlotte, but the busiest in the entire state, carrying over 167,000 vehicles per day, according to the NCDOT. I-77 at the South Carolina state line might be the only place where a roadway gets better when you enter South Carolina from North Carolina. I-85 is 8 to 10 lanes through most of the area and travels in a northeast to southwest direction and eventually east-west direction, bypassing uptown Charlotte and providing access to the Charlotte Douglas International Airport, one of the busiest in the nation. It is not tolled at any point and handles traffic pretty well until you reach Gaston County, where it shrinks to 6 lanes. Other highways in the area include the I-485 Beltway and the I-277 inner loop around Uptown. US 74 serves as the main east-west highway on the eastern side of the metro, but currently it is in a confused state where the NCDOT can't decide whether it's a freeway, expressway, or a super street. But that's a video for another day. Back on the focus of I-77, let's talk about why this road in particular is usually the most congested. Here we can see a map of traffic in the Charlotte area on a typical Friday afternoon around 4 p.m. The biggest pain points we can see in dark red are the I-85, I-485 interchange near the Charlotte airport and a section of I-77 in question between the South Carolina state line and Uptown. Charlotte's overall layout is that of a traditional concentric metro with a dense urban core of commercial and employment activity, of which all development radiates from. If you've ever played the SimCity games back in the day, this was the ideal development pattern for a city. From here, it transitions from walkable neighborhoods to eventually becoming suburban in development style. I-77 serves as sort of a main branch in which traffic from Ballantyne, South Carolina, as well as areas along the route itself converge en route to Uptown. Long distance traffic from Lake Norman, as well as people coming from I-81 in Virginia who use I-77 to bypass I-95 may use this route. In South Carolina, I-77 is actually a high-quality 8-lane roadway and contracts down to 6 lanes when crossing into North Carolina and Charlotte. A rare, embarrassing case for North Carolina where South Carolina completely outclasses them on the highway leading into the largest city between both states. My personal experience driving the highway is typically a nightmare, even in off-peak hours. I once worked for a firm in the Fort Mill, South Carolina area while living near uptown Charlotte, but even with the reverse commute, it was at least an hour and a half per day of sitting in traffic. With the population bursting at the seams, clearly Charlotte and North Carolina have to do something. The roadway was originally built in the 1960s with 4 lanes and a grassy median when Charlotte was a much smaller city. Later, the median was cleared out to add a 3rd lane on each side, but with the explosive growth, it was quickly overwhelmed once again. In recognition of this corridor as the most busy, Charlotte and North Carolina built the fabulous Lynx Blue Line, a light rail line running parallel to I-77 from I-85 to Uptown, which was also later extended further north parallel to the I-85 corridor to UNC Charlotte. While the Blue Line is nice to use for those nearby and has completely transformed the South End neighborhood into one of the most desirable parts of the city for young people, it has had little to no impact on the traffic on I-77, as traffic has only continued to get worse since its completion. Charlotte has been very aggressive in its desire to become a big city, and it is achieving just that. However, a wise man once said, "More money, more problems. Well, for Charlotte, it looks like more people, more problems. New everything is popping up all over the place, and the infrastructure projects just can't keep up with the population growth. If you're an aspiring engineer, there is plenty of work out here right now. So Charlotte and the NCDOT have determined that the roadway must be expanded, and that's where the $2.1 billion project comes into play. So what does this proposal entail? The basic premise of the proposal consists of adding not one, but two managed, aka toll lanes, on each side of I-77 between Uptown and the South Carolina state line. Managed lanes is an internal term used to describe high occupancy toll lanes, or hot lanes, where the pricing adjusts based on congestion, and vehicles with 3 or more passengers are allowed to use free of charge. Folks north of Uptown Charlotte should be familiar with this from the existing hot lanes in the area. Currently, I-77 is a tight, crowded 6-lane freeway, reminiscent of something you will see in New York. Many of the droves of New Yorkers moving here probably feel right at home with the current design. Widening I-77 is not only expensive, it is difficult from an engineering standpoint. The current freeway has lots of development next to the right-of-way, with steep drop-off as it approaches Uptown. NCDOT will not only need to buy up lots of commercial property to expand the current right-of-way, but every bridge will likely need to be torn down and replaced to add the new lanes. Yes, even this spooey at Tyvola Road, which was constructed less than 30 years ago. The current configuration of interchanges with I-277 are also archaic, with short, dangerous merge areas reminiscent of the early interstate highway design standards. These will need to be torn down and rebuilt along with any widening. And honestly, in the case of I-277, these need to be torn down and rebuilt sooner than later. Buying the commercial property along with replacing the bridges is likely the reason for the exorbitant costs. The additional 2 lanes on each side will be similar to the current hot lanes on I-77 north of Uptown and through the Lake Norman suburb. When it's all said and done, North Carolina expects to have a wide, modern highway with free-flowing traffic through its largest city that would make even Atlanta jealous. It would also set things back in their natural order, with roadways getting better when one drives into North Carolina from South Carolina. Many often call Charlotte the next Atlanta or baby Atlanta. Fortunately, Charlotte has been able to look at Atlanta and avoid some of its mistakes with transportation. I-77 will be widened with hot lanes rather than free lanes like the downtown connector, generating revenue that can later be used to maintain the roadway or invest in city transit projects after the construction costs are paid off. And on the transit side, Charlotte has already developed plans to expand its light rail network through other parts of the city, with neighboring counties on board as well as the North Carolina state government helping fund it. Unlike MARTA, which Georgia's state government refuses to support and Atlanta suburbs adamantly reject. Currently, the actual detailed design for this expansion has not been completed as far as what type of interchanges we'll see and exactly how the express lanes and exits will be configured. I did a video a while back on the I-4 express lanes in Orlando, and in my opinion, if you're not going to build them like that, with the concrete barrier separating them from the general purpose lanes, then don't bother building them at all. Hopefully North Carolina is going to go with this style of express lanes. At the center of the debate right now is how to construct the new lanes from a timing and funding standpoint. Right now the decision rests in the hands of the Charlotte Regional Transportation Planning Organization, or CRTPO. North Carolina state law requires that any toll road constructed in the state must be requested and approved by the local planning organization. NCDOT has tasked them with deciding whether a private contractor should step in to finance, build, and manage the lanes, or CRTPO would prefer that NCDOT themselves add the lanes. With private financing, the project could start by 2027 and be completed in the 2030s. While waiting for NCDOT funding, we'll see the project not start until 2029 at the soonest, and possibly taking until sometime in the 2040s to open. NCDOT says it will take anywhere from 10 to 15 years just to purchase the right-of-way for the project using public funds. Either way, the project will be tolled, as NCDOT says it is just too steep of a price to build with free lanes. Though NCDOT has not yet opened the project up for bidding among contractors, Cintra, the same company who built and manages the current hot lanes on I-77 north of Uptown, has submitted an unsolicited bid to build the lanes. Charlotte officials are weary of this company, with good reason, considering the issues that plagued the construction of those lanes. CRTPO could make a decision as soon as November 16th on this project, which will have major impacts on Charlotte's transportation network over the next several decades. If you live in the Charlotte area, keep a close eye on this project, as the decision made here will reverberate for decades in the future. Alright guys, there it is, $2.1 billion toll lanes coming to Charlotte. What do you think about this project? It looks like the tolls are coming regardless, so you think Charlotte should wait for the state to build them, or should they bite the bullet and let a private contractor build them? If you live in Charlotte right now, how do you love that I-77 commute? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching. See you on the next trip coming soon to a town near you.